You're listening to the SBA Loan Experts Podcast, your source for information, tips, and education on the SBA loan program from SBA expert Chris Hearn, founder and CEO of Fountainhead, the nation's leading non-bank SBA lender. Here's your host, Chris Hearn.
Can you compare the time we're in now from your perspective? I know that, listen, I don't know who experts would be in today's world, because no one can see everything. But from your seat,
Right.
from where you sit, can you compare what we saw at 9/11, what all went on there, maybe 2008, if you have recollection of a downturn prior to that, with what we're seeing now, and just give some perspective for all of us from where you sit?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and I feel like the mood of people is much more pessimistic right now. But there's a confused pessimism, and what I mean by that is, we're battling an enemy that we can't see. We don't really know how somebody gets the virus. And we've chosen to shut down the economy, the world's economy for the most part, or a big chunk of it. And we're only now starting to reopen things. And I think, I know that we've both seen reports about what this is doing to people's mental health, for instance, and, the percentage increases of addictions and, violence against, spouses and children, for instance. And just there's all these ramifications that come from it when people don't have some semblance of routine and order and purpose. And a lot of people haven't had purpose. I mean, I think that's part of our problem as a society is too many people think that, their job defines them, for instance. And obviously we're much more complicated than that, a lot more nuances to us. But I think there's a pessimism. I think it's worse economically. It's clearly, and statistically, if you look at the numbers and whatnot, it's definitely worse than the last recession, the so-called Great Recession. It's definitely worse than in the aftermath of 9/11, and from a mood standpoint, I guess. But I also think, there's this kind of sly optimism that I think a lot of people have, because there's still some, just stuff doesn't fit together very nicely and neatly. It's just like, are the masks really going to help us? I don't know. These plexiglass that are between the desks. I mean, that seems, if it's all airborne, then what's the point? And if it can stay airborne for hours, and what are we doing? Maybe we should have just taken the most vulnerable folks and try to quarantine them and not literally shut down the world's largest economy in a matter of a couple months. And so I think it's strange. It's a very paradoxical time. And I think that's really weighing heavily on people's minds and their hearts. So it's just, I don't think, none of us have ever experienced anything remotely close to this. That's why I said, I think it's so much worse than the last recession economically. It's worse from a mood standpoint than 9/11. I've been on some news media and I've been asked this question, and I said it's kind of like both of those things wrapped up together, plus the protests after Vietnam. Maybe, I don't know. There's aspects of, World War II perhaps in this, although I don't want to belittle that in any way. But I don't know that we're on the cusp of the end of civilization, for instance. But there are some aspects of that it kind of feels that way, and I don't know. It's just a very troubling time, It's just it's very strange times.
It is. Would you say, I'm sure you're familiar with the term a black swan event,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are, we've got a few years under our belt, so we've seen some things, and like to think, we have control over situations, and then something like this happens. To me, it seems like this could be an event for a generation that kind of defines a lot of things. Do you agree with that? Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely. No, this is the biggest, blackest swan that there will probably, hopefully, God willing, will exist in our lives.
Right.
And I feel I have a 19-year-old daughter who just started college at Baylor in Texas, and it's funny. You look at her lifetime, and it only occurred to me a few months ago. I mean, she was born 11 days before 9/11, and there's a whole story there that we could go in if you want. Then when she's sort of coming of age, not, kind of at the end of adolescence, preteen, so to speak, then you've got the Great Recession, and now you've got the coronavirus pandemic, as she's a senior in high school and now going off to college. I mean, these kids can't get a break, Tim. I mean, that's just that particular age group is just like, it's staggering. Those kids that were born in 2001, 2002, it's just, it's rough. So yeah, I think it's going to define them. I mean, we've got we got baby boomers, we got Generation X, we got, millennials. Somebody's going to come up with a name for these poor kids. It's, the traumatized.
Yeah, and who knows? Yeah,
I don't know what we're going to call it.
The pandemic generation. I don't know. It's going to be kind of tough, and also, well.
Today's episode is brought to you by Fountainhead, the nation's leading non-bank SBA lender. Fountainhead's team of SBA experts will guide you through every step of the process and get your loan closed faster and more efficient than any bank. Apply today online at FountainheadCC.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the SBA Loan Experts Podcast.